Question APX accountancy. This is slightly advanced level question on building block model, slightly advanced in your level, right? The reason we want to do this question so that you can see the building block model in more detail, and if it is tested in a slightly difficult level even in your exam, so you should be able to do it, right? Now building block models, I'm assuming that it can be tested up to 10 to 15 marks in your exam, so it can be a big question, right? Okay, so APX accountancy, as you can see, APX accountancy, it's an accountancy firm, so it's in the service industry. As we said, that building block model is for service industry, right? Now we'll see the requirement first of all. We'll spend some time on the requirement. Doesn't matter if you spend a little bit extra time on the requirement for the complex questions, right? Because you need to understand the question in order to answer it, right? So the first one, it says, briefly describe Fitzgerald and Moon building block model of performance management. How many marks? 4 marks. I'm not expecting that you can have a knowledge-based question in your exam, but it can be tested also for a few marks, right? It's a knowledge-based question. You simply have to explain the model. Now, whenever you see question like this, a long question, always encircle the requirement. So briefly describe, that's the first requirement. Fitzgerald and Moon building block model of performance management, right? Then evaluate the existing performance management system by APX by applying the building block model. Now, before we do the second question, this is of course more important, right? The first question, because that is a knowledge-based question, so we can just simply start from here. So I'll say APX, right? This is the question. We don't have to read the question for the knowledge-based question, right? You simply have to explain the building block model. Now, how are you going to do it? Now, if I'll be in your place, first of all, I'll simply say building block model, right? Building block model, right? This will be my first headline. And I'm going to explain what is building block model as we have discussed, right, in the lecture. What is building block model? Of course, it is actually a performance measurement system for service organization that helps us to look at the dimensions of different performance and then the standard and then the rewards. My next headline can be the dimensions. Dimensions. Now we know that there are 6 dimensions. 4 of them are determinants and 2 of them are results. So let's start from the determinants. The first one is quality. Which means the quality of the service. Then we'll have flexibility. Just give me a second, right? Quality, flexibility, then we'll have resource utilization, and then we'll have innovation. Right? Now remember, it's a 4-marker question, so we cannot actually explain everything over here. So what we can do is we can simply write one line on the dimensions, that there are different ways of looking at the performance. These 4 are called determinants. And then we'll have 2 more, which is competitive performance and financial performance. What do you call these last two? These are results. Right. So determinants, 4 determinants, and then 2 results in dimension. Right. Okay. After dimensions, we said we have the standards. Remember, the dimensions are going to actually focus on the critical success factors and the KPIs. And the standards are actually targets of the KPIs. Right? What should be the level of KPI? There are 3 main qualities of the standard. The 3 qualities of the standards are ownership, achievability, and equity. Equity is fairness. Fairness. Ownership, you should own the target. The target should be achievable. And equity, the target should be fair. Then 3 qualities of the rewards. Your reward system should be clear. So clarity. It should be motivating. So motivation. And controllability. Right? Controllable. Right? Well, that will be enough for a 4-marker question. In fact, that will be more than enough. But you guys, you should know that, let's say if you get like a 4-marker question like this in the exam, you should know something that you don't need to write too much. Maybe a 1-liner on dimension, and then you can list the dimension. A 1-liner on standard, and then you can list these 3 standards. And a 1-liner on rewards, and then you can write it. You can list these 3. Or if you want, you can actually write this in a 1 paragraph, this in 1 paragraph, and this also in 1 paragraph, right? Of course, the first paragraph will be slightly bigger, right? So it's up to you with 3 headlines, right? Now that was a knowledge-based question. Of course, it was easy. Let's see the second one. It says, evaluate existing performance management system. Okay, what is evaluate, guys? What does that mean? This word evaluate. Anyone? Evaluate in simple terms in your exam, evaluate if there is no calculation involved, then that would mean good or bad. You have to be very careful with the requirement. It says existing performance management system, which means the performance management system need to be evaluated, right? It's different from measuring the performance, right? These are 2 different things. If I ask you to measure the performance, right, then that means that you want to see if the company is performing good or bad. If I ask you to evaluate the management performance system, then that means that we want to see if the system is good or bad. Like, for example, what should be measured by this company? This is the system. And on the basis of the measurement, if we are saying if the company is performing good or bad, that is the company's performance. So make sure you differentiate both of these 2, right? This is existing management performance system. You want to see if the system is good or bad, right? I'm expecting that in your exam, if your examiner will be testing, right, maybe your examiner will be more keen to test if the company is performing good or bad, rather than if the system is good or bad, right? But this is also not impossible, so make sure you prepare for this also. So evaluate the existing performance system. Is this system good or bad at APX by applying the building block? So we'll be using this building block model, and we'll see if the system is good or bad, right? Okay, let's forget about part C. Now we can read the question. So it says, this is the company's background. This is also very important to understand when in the exam, if you're given something about the business, you need to watch it very carefully because you guys will be consultant for that business. So you need to understand the business very well. APX accountancy, APX, is an accountancy partnership with 12 branches covering each of the main cities of England, right? So it's a country, England, in which we have this accountancy firm, which has 12 branches. The business is well established, having organically grown over the last 40 years to become the second largest non-international practice in England. Okay, what is organically grown? Can you tell me what is organically grown? Organically grown, for example, when you're making your own firms, using your own employees, you don't try to take over another company or another business and then grow, right? Well, you can grow by this way as well, that you take over another business, right? You purchase it and grow. Organic growth is basically when you want to grow yourself, right? Organically. That will be, of course, comparatively slowly. Okay. Accountancy market is mature and expands and contracts along with the general economic performance in England. Okay. APX offers accountancy, audit, uh, accountancy, audit, tax, and business advisory service. Okay. You have to watch it very carefully because that's what they are offering. They're offering this service, this service, this service, and this service. Business advisory service, taxation, audit, and let's say accountancy, right? That's what they are offering. So of course we need to understand, right? Okay. Now, the current business environment in England is dominated by a recession and the associated insolvency work is covered within the business advisory area, right? Now, business advisory area is going to cover insolvency. Remember, we have four services: accountancy, audit, taxation, and business advisory, right? Don't you think that when we'll have recession, we'll have more cases of insolvency? And if we'll have more cases of insolvency, then it means that this particular service, the business advisory service, will be performing better as compared to the other services. Do you guys agree with it? What do you think? Now, let's say we have different partners or different individuals responsible for this service and this service and this service, and let's say this service, right? We have different partners responsible for this, right? So it means this particular partner will get more business. Just because of recession, we'll have more insolvency cases. So this partner will be performing better, right? Is this in the control of this particular manager? What do you think? Is it in the control of the manager? Does this show, does this show that this particular manager is performing better? What do you think? Yes, this is right. This person will be performing better, which is not in this person's control, right? Okay. Now we are given some figures. We have the revenue over here for audit, tax, and business advisory, right? The revenue from audit, revenue from tax, and revenue from business advisory, right? The overall APX revenue from these three services. And then we have the figures from the accounting industry as well. Like what are the other people getting, right? The overall figures in the accounting industry, the overall figures, right? That can be used for comparison. Can we compare audit with tax services or tax with business advisory services? Do you think this comparison is better, or should we compare the revenue from um, APX from audit and the overall revenue in the industry, and the revenue from tax from APX and the overall revenue from the industry. What do you think? What kind of comparison should be better? Should we compare these services, or should we compare it with the industry? What do you think? Well, of course, we can compare them in order to see that which service is more profitable, right, for our own analysis. But for the performance measurement, we'll say that apple need to be compared with apples, not with oranges, right? So this need to be compared with the industry. Change in the revenue on previous year. So how much is the change in the revenue? I'll assume that this is actually the percentage increase, right? So in audit, from audit service, we have increased it by 3% as compared to the previous service. From tax, we have increased it by 8%. From business advisory, we have increased it by 22%. And can you see? Maybe that's one of the reason. Maybe that's one of the reason that the business advisory manager was getting more services because of more business because of the recession. You can see a very big increase in business advisory. And then we have the accounting industry averages also. Then we have the profit margin for APX, right? We actually have customer services score 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent and 1, would that mean that 1 is the worst? 1 to 5. So let's say, for example, we're asking our customers that how was our service? Categorize it from 1 to 5, where 5 means excellent, right? And we can see that APX for audit, we're getting 3.4, for taxation, we're getting 3.9, and business advisory, we're getting 4.1. Okay. Do you think it is a good measure? What do you think? Do you think it's a good measure or a bad measure? Customer services, customer services scoring. In this particular situation, do you think it's a good measure or bad measure? Well, you need to see something very carefully, right? Well, of course, in service industry, our customers are very important for us, right? But do you think that people are going to like auditors, especially? Do you think people are going to like auditors, right? Nobody likes them, right? So if you are going to ask customers if you are happy with the audit service, maybe they are going to say no. It doesn't mean that the person was not performing well, but the customer services rating, maybe he's not going to get, the auditor may not get good scoring. And you can see that the score of the auditor is actually less as compared to the other services. So this can be true also, this can be a good measure, but sometimes some services um, are different than other services, and it's the nature of the service that maybe customers are not going to like it, right? So maybe you're not going to like your teacher if your teacher is going to give you a lot of homework, right? But it doesn't mean that it's actually bad performance, right? Okay, let's see what do we have after that. Let's see what do we have in this paragraph, right? Okay, hold on a while, right? Can I see if we are, can you tell me if we are actually performing good or bad, right? But by just looking at these figures, do you think we should mention that are we performing good or bad, or which particular service is performing good? What do you think? Should we say this? That if audit function is performing well, or taxation or business advisory, should we say this? Should we have these kind of comparison? What do you think? No, because that's not required. We are required in the question to talk about the system,